Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It's a beautiful Friday, September 30th, 2022. So here we are at the last day of the month of September. I hope as you reflect back on this past month that you found yourself to be successful in helping small businesses move towards accessing capital through our programming and, of course, generating the income that you had anticipated. If not, or I guess if so, regardless, tomorrow starts a new month, and it's a great opportunity to hit the reset button and do some great things. And I see a number of you on track for an incredible October. I was talking to one of our new, I'll say newish, but newer white label partners yesterday, and she has 15 deals to submit today. 15 deals, so that's great. But ultimately, we get together in the mornings at this time on a live Zoom, and then we record it for the others to listen to in YouTube to support our distribution partners, talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories. Ultimately, we're here to support each of you. Often what we're doing is monitoring the inquiries and frankly, concerns that you all have to guide us in the agenda for what we should discuss. Here's a couple things that we've learned. We need to keep it simpler. So even if you look at our website, businessparalegalcorp.com, we're just now listing 2 campaigns or 2 programs, because when you list all the different elements, it becomes too complicated for many. And so that's what I want to focus on today. What should be shared here on my screen is what we call the Access to Capital program. Now there's a few that are exceptions, like Bruce and a few others that aren't using this, but for most of you, this is probably going to be your go-to resource. So let's cover a little bit of background, and then we'll talk about why. So sometimes we see that there's confusion in the field. We have 2 versions of access to capital. I'm going to try to use my words carefully so it's both accurate and easy to understand. So let's just call it this way. We have 2 versions of access to capital. Both versions are the same programming. Both of them include the $100,000 guarantee for the client. Both of them include a deposit, which you can either make refundable or not. Normally it's $2,500 that's paid to you on the front end of the process. Both of them are going to generate a performance fee for you. Both of them, you select the performance fee. All of that's the same. All of that's the same. The only difference between what we'll label for now for simplicity is the 2 different formats of access to capital is, in one scenario, the client pays the refundable deposit up front, and in the other case, they don't pay it up front. So in other words, they wait until after their first capital raise. So technically, access to capital has no upfront cost. And then we have a different version that we used to call Capital Ready. Sometimes now we call it the Guaranteed Financing Program. It's the same process. It's just simply in the Capital Ready / Guaranteed Financing Program, the client pays the deposit up front. So they're not waiting until their first capital raise. That's the only difference between the 2. And so it's very important that you understand that. And frankly, if you look at your white label partner agreement that you have with us back on Exhibit A or Schedule A, whatever it's called, it delineates that. But that's crucial. Now, you each have access to both. You can take whichever version of that you want out to the marketplace. There's pros and cons of each, right? Excuse me. With the true access to capital, as shown on the screen here, on the shared screen, the client has what? No upfront cost. Is that going to allow you to enroll more clients because they have no upfront cost? Of course. Everything else is the same. So that will make it easier, especially for those of you that are not very good closers. That would be the recommended path. Some of you, like Jose and Bruce and Bernard and others, are very good, and Alfred are very good closers. And so for the good closers, they may prefer that the client pay that deposit up front, even before the first tranche of financing. But that's your choice. When you go into your white label partner Dropbox, you have resources for both. Either is fine. It's still the same program. Had someone emailing me last night of, oh, well, in the access to capital, the money's not guaranteed. Well, no, that's craziness. It is guaranteed. It's in writing. It's a $100,000 guarantee. The only difference is when the refundable deposit is collected. Is it collected immediately upon enrollment or as an access to capital after their first tranche of financing? Now, sometimes people, and any question's a good question, right? And I love why questions the best. Some people will say, well, why are we charging a deposit anyway? Well, because we need to build a loan package out, and building a loan package takes some time and effort and skill. And it's not unfair or unusual for an individual, or in this case, a small business owner, an entrepreneur, to pay a professional for services rendered. You pay your accountant, you pay your attorney, right? That's normal. So you and I are technical advisors. We're building them a loan package. Is the loan package free? Well, kind of. We're going to ask them to pay we're going to ask them to pay a deposit. It's up to you if you want to make it refundable or not. Normally it is, and I'd recommend that. So they're paying a $2,500 refundable deposit to you, but it's refundable. They actually go through the process and then they get that deposit back, just like if you went to go rent an apartment. So that's a lot better, right? If you went to your accountant or your attorney and said, hey, I want to pay you the retainer, but I want that to be refunded after services are rendered, they look at you like, say, that's crazy, right? After services have been rendered, that's what it was used for. But in our case, we make it almost too good to be true. With access to capital, there's literally no upfront cost for the client to enroll. We help them get their first tranche of financing, typically within 3 to 5 days. And we reference within 10 days here, but we can almost always exceed that. And that will it's guaranteed at least to be enough for their deposit, which you can make refundable or not. We recommend making it refundable. And so then what happens? Well, then we go build their loan package. And then when we build their loan package out, what we're able to do is then go for business funding. And so with the business funding, they're guaranteed a minimum of what? $100,000. And just like the agreement says, and you'll see the agreement, right? Because the agreement's in your white label Dropbox. The agreement is what you're using to secure relationships with clients. It says that once they've completed at least $100,000 capital raise, they get the deposit back. Let's talk about that for a minute. Well, should the deposit be refundable or not? So there's two views, and most things in life have multiple views, and I don't know that there's a right or wrong, but let's just debate it for a moment. For those of you that, well, let me rephrase it. What are the benefits of making the $2,500 deposit refundable? The benefits is that it's more palatable to the client, and you're going to enroll more clients. Now, the negative you might say is, oh yeah, but that's coming out of my pocket, right? I don't want to have to pay that back. Well, you don't technically have to, because you're controlling the price structure of the client. So if you left the template agreement as a $2,500 refundable deposit, not paid by the client until after their first capital raise, which is going to happen within the first few days, within the first week or so, then they go through the capital raise. They raise at least $100,000, could be a lot more, but a minimum of $100,000, and they're paying you the performance fee off that capital raise. Well, how much is the performance fee? You control that, right? You could make it, I guess, 0%. You could make it 6%. By default, it says 10%. Some of you are going at 12, 15. Mark likes to do 20%. That's up to you. But my point is this: you can build the deposit in so you're made whole. So let's say you and I owned a car dealership. And so we're selling Porsches. Porsche just had an IPO yesterday, right? It did very well. So let's say that you and I sell Porsches, and those are hard to come by anyway, so it's not a great example, but we'll just say you and I sell Porsches, new Porsches, and we have a competitor. So we want people to come to our dealership instead of the competitor's dealership to buy a Porsche 911 from them. And so we say, you know what, we're going to throw in free window tint. And so that's kind of a pitch. So analogous to a refundable deposit, if you will. But we could build the cost of the window tint into the sales transaction. So in the end, we collected more from the client to cover the cost of the window tinting. So really our profit didn't go down a penny, but it worked to be able to attract more clients. They saw more perceived value in getting the 911 from us versus our competitor because they got the free window tint. So I would recommend making the deposit refundable and then increase your performance fee by enough to absorb that, which they're paying after they get their capital raises. And so they don't mind paying it then. And then that way they get the deposit back once they've reached 100,000. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's review the flyer here, because if you assimilate this, I think it would be hard to not be successful in the month of October, which of course starts tomorrow, because the value proposition that we're offering is very good. So we're helping small businesses access a minimum of 100,000. And it's, again, in writing, guaranteed. It's not just lip service. Plus, there's no upfront cost. Frankly, those are the two most important bullets of the whole initiative, right? Guaranteed capital raise, no upfront cost. Now there's more to it, but that's strong. And of course, that's why it's at the top of the flyer. So then we go through and clarify, well, who should participate? It's fine for pre-launch or early stage. So, oh, what if I've not formed my business yet? Great, enroll. What if I'm a startup? Great, enroll. What if my business has been around 20 years? Great, enroll. So we get a lot of questions from some of you that ask a lot of what if scenarios. Well, I need real estate funding. Great, enroll. I want to start a church. Great, enroll. I want to start a strip club. Great, enroll. Right? So as long as it's a legal business model, then this is the single answer. We don't need to go through a lot of what if scenarios to figure out what should we do with a client. Enroll them in the access to capital. Is the 100,000 as much as they can get? Because that's not enough. Well, we guarantee 100,000, but it can be a lot more. I mean, we want to help them get as much as they want. If you and I were realtors, would we only want to go sell cheap houses? Or if someone came to us qualified to buy an expensive home, would we want to help them? Of course, we'd want to help them. The bigger the deal, the more money you make. So the 100,000 is the floor, not the max. So here's just a little statement about why accessing capital is important from the SBA, a little credibility statement about our team. So that's fine. Now we get down to cost, because what we know is typically that the two most important questions we have to answer for a prospect is, does this apply to me? Absolutely. So what we said is, what if they're pre-launch or startup? Sign up. What if I get shitty credit? Sign up. What if I have no time in business? Sign up. What if I have no revenue coming in? Sign up. Right. So there's not a bunch of pre-qualifying questions. As long as it's a US-based business and legal in what they're doing, they should sign up. Okay, so then we get to the cost. There is no upfront cost. Now, you can be our moral compass if you want, and many of you have studied economics more than I have, and behavioral statistics. But the bottom line is the average consumer will make their purchasing decision by what it costs them right now versus over time. And so that's why you see people will go out and buy cars 0% down, even though their car payment's $2,000 a month, right? So you're not manipulating anyone, you're not being dishonest, but you're just playing off of a consumer buying behavior. When you can offer them no risk, guaranteed upside, with no upfront cost, which is reiterated here, you're in a pretty damn good position, right? Because no one else is doing this. No one else in the marketplace is offering 100,000 guaranteed, because most of the time, if they offered that, the FTC would come shut them down. I've told you, we've had our discussions and audit with the FTC, and not only did they not shut us down, they had no ramifications. We did not have any black marks, any request for changes, because what we do just so happens, maybe it's clever, but it's legal, it's ethical, and it's effective. So you and I can go out and offer this without concern. No one else, pretty much no one else can, because the FTC will come calling on them like they did us. But again, we're able to validate it, so we're good. And then the fact there's no upfront cost could attract a lot of people if you just get the word out, right? But if you don't get the word out, no one's going to sign up and you're not going to make any money. So again, no upfront cost, but we do clarify. Now, this is a flyer. What you should know is a flyer is not the contract. We have a written agreement for them to review. This is the, if you will, the advertisement. So this should be accurate. It shouldn't be deceptive, but it's not meant to tell the whole story, right? That's not the purpose of a flyer. That's the purpose of a contract. So we do go above and beyond. We're not only just saying there's no upfront cost. We're going to go ahead and let them know, hey, that we are paid. This is not free. You're going to pay based upon your capital raise. There will be a refundable deposit that's not collected until after your first tranche capital. So this is very accurate, very honorable, very ethical. And again, it doesn't tell the whole story. That's the purpose of the agreement. But if you get this proposition out in front of people because of the $100,000 guarantee and the no upfront cost, you're going to get, you should get a lot of traction. If not, you're probably bad at what you do, and you may need to look at using other people to do the outreach. And that's okay. We all have strengths and weaknesses. I have many weaknesses, but some of you may not be good closers, even on a free program that guarantees 100,000. And if you're shitty at closing, it's time to outsource that, right? You're the CEO of your business. You don't have to be the best at everything. You can perform certain tasks yourself or delegate it to others. Take Bruce. Bruce is online. I think we're on track for another 4 new deals today. He's looking to hire people, right? If you're just shitty at doing this, he'll hire you, he'll train you, and he'll pay you to do it for him. But Bruce is great, but do you want to work for Bruce or do you want to work for yourself? I guess, frankly, both options are available. All right, so let's scroll on down and just continue to get familiar with the value proposition. Now, this flyer is in your Dropbox, right? And so you can change any of it. You can change whatever wording you want, but certainly you would change the call to action, of course, right? You would change this call to action for them to get in contact with you based upon whatever model you prefer. Many of you have gotten with Scott Stroud, you set up a landing page. So what you're trying to do is drive them to the landing page, drive them to the landing page. That's what Jeff did last year, enrolled over 400 people in 1 month. He talked to none of them. I'm not here to say that you shouldn't talk to any clients. I'm just saying that with this model and using a landing page with good automation, in other words, follow-up and online terms and conditions, you can enroll hundreds of people per month without even talking to them. Regardless of that, whatever your call to action is should be here. If it's your phone number, if it's your email, if it's your landing page, if it's your website, whatever you want, obviously you would want to change the call to action. But let's get back to the content. So we explained to the reader, raising capital to start or grow a business shouldn't be a barrier, shouldn't be difficult. It's actually simple. We just need to meet the credibility factors for the given source of capital. So what you and I know, there's many different sources of capital, each have their own underwriting criteria. So we need to figure out what the right source of capital is based upon the client's circumstances. Let's take one of Bruce's clients that we were working on yesterday. He is looking for a $7 million capital raise, which is fine. He's a credible guy. So we're going through the process. We're gathering information from the client to determine where should that capital come from, and does he meet the underwriting criteria? If so, then we'll go ahead and apply, or if not, then we'll resolve the issue. In this client's case, he's got a lot of assets. He's got multiple real estate properties. He's got more vehicles than I've ever seen, quite an impressive collection. But if you added all of his assets up, he has what's called a collateral shortfall. So in other words, the amount of money that he wants to borrow is more than the collateral he has to pledge. Is that a problem? No. You and I offer the collateral support program to address it. So my point is, we help clients become credible enough to get approved based upon the 3 C's that we've talked about many times before. So now what we want to do is overcome on this flyer, back to the flyer, overcome the barrier where some people say, well, this sounds too good to be true. How is it possible that you're going to guarantee anyone 100,000? That sounds like a scam. That's too good to be true. Well, when people say that, they're illustrating ignorance or financial illiteracy, because what we do is a proven model. So what we're going to do is use our expertise in helping each participant become credible enough on paper. We do that by building a loan package, increasing financial literacy, and as I just referenced, building their 3 C's. The other key question that you'll probably get from many clients is, well, how long is this going to take? Now, granted, if you're guaranteeing 100,000 and there's no upfront cost, you're not going to get as big of a pushback on time frame. They'll still want to know when. But if you're charging upfront the way that Bernard, Bruce, Alfred, Jose does, then more often than not, the clients will be more sensitive to timeline. So what's my point? If you use access to capital, you desensitize the urgency of timing. Everybody wants sooner than later, of course. So how do we answer that? Well, we let them know, well, we're going to immediately assist you in getting your first tranche of financing within just days of enrollment. We talked about that earlier. We had an example of a success story earlier this week where the gentleman had over $100,000 in funding offers for first tranche financing. So the first tranche, we can answer that question. It's going to be fast, and people like that. It went fast. Now, how long will it take to reach their full capital raise? We don't know that yet, quite frankly. We need to build the loan package out, see if they're qualified. If so, go to funding. If not qualified, fix the problems. So what you want to do is redirect the question. So if they ask the question, how long is this going to take? You'd say, well, we're going to get started right away, and we'll get your first tranche within just a few days. And that's usually satisfactory to most people. And that's honest. So what should you know? And again, this is a bulleted list off the flyer, just trying to increase your awareness, and we'll wrap it up. No minimum credit scores, no minimum time to participate. Funding could come from numerous sources. They'll have an experienced business paralegal to work with them. Credible model using award-winning curriculum from the FDIC, SBA. There's no risk. The guarantees in writing. First tranche is fast, which we've talked about several times today. And there's many, many different sources of capital. Could be SBA or non-SBA funding, could be lines of credit, could be term loans. It could be real estate, could be equipment financing. Not so often could be business credit cards. That's not the norm, but which would be considered revolving. But we don't know, right? We're going to always pursue the type of capital that the client wants, but we need to build a loan package out first to map out that capital raise. So as we wrap up today, Friday, September 30th, as we wrap up the month of September, I encourage each of you, consider using access to capital as your go-to resource out to the marketplace. With the guarantee and the no upfront cost, you should get some good traction. It's a very credible, very reputable program. We've given you many, many funding success stories to stand behind. It's coming down to you to get the word out. Are there any questions, comments, concerns that any of you have before we finish our abbreviated Friday training today? So if you're not a white label partner, send us a text. This is our text line. We have a regular phone line that's answered by a person. This is the text line. Text us your email address, and we can get you set up as a white label partner. There's no cost. Get your Dropbox, get you this flyer, the other agreements, flyers, editable material, so you're open for business. And within one business day, you should be open for business. Thank you for that question. Anyone else have any questions? All right, I'll close on this, and I'm kind of hesitant to even go this direction, but we used to do in-person training, kind of a boot camp for our white label partners, and we are starting to receive some requests to do an in-person kind of in-depth one-day boot camp. So if anyone's interested in that, reach out to us and let us know, especially those of you that are RVPs, regional vice presidents. What we've seen in the past is if we have if we pull people together, we get in a room together, we spend one day, we can build a real depth of understanding and competency and greater results. So we're not going to require that again like we used to. But if you might be interested in attending an in-person boot camp to go through all this, to role play, to make sure that you're an expert, let us know, and we'll be evaluating here soon if towards the end of the year, we're going to start having those in different markets. All right, France asked, what is the cost of accessing the capital? So there's two answers to that. As a white label partner, France, you choose what the deposit is and you choose what the performance fee is, of course. And then the other part of the answer, France, is what is the lender charging? And so you and I can't speak to that. Once we get an application into the lender makes a funding offer, and then that funding offer is laid out to the prospect or to the client to let them know what the prospective terms would be. So you and I don't control the lending terms and conditions, nor is the client required to accept a funding offer if it's not best for them. All right, well, we'll see you back Monday morning. Hope you have a productive day. Let's finish the month strong. Thank you. Bye-bye.